In this video, I'm going to share with you how to run a retreat business virtually so that you can still make money during a lockdown or a pandemic or whatever might happen in the world. When the pandemic started back in March of this past year, I was really concerned. I had a whole retreat business live in person that I'd been running now for 6 years. And I didn't have any sense that this is something that could translate to virtual or online. But somehow I figured it out. I made it happen. And as a matter of fact, even now that Florida has opened up and I always host my retreats in Miami, I've made the decision that no matter what happens, for the next year at least, I'm going to keep running at least 2 of my 4 retreats virtually. And that's because it was so successful. So I'm going to share with you what structures and systems I put into place to be able to turn my live retreat experience into a successful virtual one. One of the biggest things that has come up as I start to work on making my retreats virtual and helping other people make their retreats virtual is that they forget the power of a retreat in the first place. One of the key things that makes a retreat so effective and so productive and so transformational is that people retreat. That means they pull themselves out of their normal life and they focus all their attention in this one area that they go to the retreat for. But what happens when people take their retreat virtually is they sometimes forget that. And because people are doing Zoom from their home, they don't really retreat. They actually are still in their morass, they're in their day-to-day, and they're trying to do this new transformational thing. And it just doesn't work. Like, people will show up from home and they'll turn off their camera, or their kids will come, or people are screaming in the background. So one of the key things when you are creating your virtual version of your retreat is to remember to make sure that people agree to retreat. So what that looks like in our world is that when we do a virtual retreat, we have people agree that they're going to have a private space, that they will be uninterrupted. If they have to go get a hotel, then go get a hotel. They're going to make sure that they have sovereignty and sanctity of their container, and that they're going to be present the entire time, and that they're going to keep the camera on the entire time. So these are just a few examples of some of the agreements. Before we even get started into changing up the structure of your retreat, this helps create the agreements and the guidelines that are going to help make your retreat just as successful even though you're not in person. Another thing to think about is maybe you don't have to go completely virtual. So what I'm talking about here is that what we did is I made our upfront retreat, the one that was open to the public, the initial retreat that people come to, I made that virtual. So that's what I call our breakthrough experience. So this might be what like Tony Robbins calls unleash the power within, or Landmark Forum, their initial experience. If you've never heard of the Landmark Forum, they're a very successful retreat and seminar company. So what I'm saying is that you don't have to make all of your things virtual, but at least the things that are most front-facing to new people. Because once you've got that initial retreat experience digitally, you might still be able to do some back-end retreats in person, unless you're in a hot spot or a place that's completely locked down. But smaller groups are usually still able to meet even when bigger ones aren't. So in our business, we have an upfront retreat with 30 or 40 people, but then we have the back-end retreats for our one-year clients that are 15 or 20 people. And we've gone ahead and kept gathering, not the entire time, but more recently, even though we're still doing the upfront retreats virtually. And by the way, before I get into the structure and the systems, one thing I want to caution you about is trying to do a hybrid event. Those are really hard to pull off. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying don't look into it. Just know that when you're trying to serve 2 audiences, one digital, one in person, usually one of the audiences doesn't get the full experience. So the structure that you want to think about is what I was just talking about earlier. Can you create a virtual structure that gives you the opportunity to sell into something on the back end that potentially could even be live? So what that looks like is delivering on a compelling promise, delivering a juicy outcome, delivering a breakthrough that people really want and need in a compressed amount of time, even if it's virtual. Let me give you an example. My client and really good friend, Leanne Webster, her whole business is based around email marketing. She used to do an email marketing retreat live in person where she would fly in her tech person and bring in a writer, and then she'd have all her clients that are attending the retreat sit around a table, and over the course of 3 days, they would map out their email marketing funnels. They would design their lead magnet, they would write their email sequence, they'd design their landing pages with her tech person. They did it all on site. And she didn't want to go virtual, but like me, she was faced with the choice of either canceling or going virtual, and she decided to go virtual. Well, everybody just met virtually. They did exactly the same work. And in fact, she said it was actually easier because she didn't have to fly someone in and get a venue and a location. They still completed all the same work. It was cheaper for her to deliver the experience, which means it was more profitable and people got the same outcome. So the lesson in this is if you can design a retreat that achieves an outcome, right, that's more focused on some sort of value proposition that people really want and need, then that's easier than just creating a retreat for people to gather and connect and bond. Those types of gathering, connecting, and bonding experiences, perhaps you can move them into a back-end program once people have already connected and experienced your foundational retreat virtually. They might be even more excited to meet in person later. If you have a retreat idea that you've been excited about and you feel like you can't do it anymore because it has to be virtual, don't lose faith. Set up a call with me. Let's have a conversation. You can book on my calendar, superstaractivator.com/go, and let's explore if and how you can turn your retreat into a virtual one. You can click on the link below or go to superstaractivator.com/go. See you soon.